Coming up on iOS Today, we've got apps to help you write and a new way to do your email. Plus, we introduce a brand new host.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
iOS Today is brought to you by Calm, the #1 app to help reduce your stress, relax your mind, and help you sleep. Get 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/iOS Today. It's iOS Today time. Hello, everybody. I'm Leo Laporte. You notice a great vacancy to my right. Nothing's happened to Megan. She's just moved on to a better place, not Twit. She's got a new job, which I will let her tell you about in due time. But we can now reveal that her trip to Kauai was more than just a vacation, and that we have hired a replacement, somebody who's going to be a big part of our Twit family going forward. And not a stranger, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to our newest Twit host, Mikah Sargent. Yeah, wow. Mikah. Yeah. Go. Micah's, of course, filled in for Megan many times. And for me, many
as well
times.
As Leo.
Yeah. And you'll be doing a lot more of that in the near future. But Mikah, we love Mikah. You may remember him from iMore, but you've also done broadcast before, right?
Yeah. I worked at a company called Newsy. I did news anchoring, late night television hosting type stuff, the whole kit and caboodle. I've made recipes for about.com. It's all over the place.
So Mikah and his Chihuahuas will be coming to town in a I don't know, how long is it going to take you? We're relocating you, and I feel bad because Micah's in Missouri right now, and all your family is in Missouri, but
all my family's in Missouri.
They're going to allow us to steal you away.
Yeah, they're very kind. I'll be out there at the end of July, so not too long from now. I'll be hopefully settled into California.
So until then, he'll be in the TV screen on iOS Today.
Yes, indeed.
But we're I couldn't be more thrilled. And to be honest, even before Megan told us she was leaving, we were already trying to figure out a way to get you out here. So the timing actually is perfect. But it's just so people understand, you aren't designed to be Megan's replacement. You're just
Correct.
somebody we had always wanted to have as part of our Twit family. So we're really thrilled.
As am I. Thank you.
Now, one of the things that you do a lot of is writing. And I thought we would cover writing apps today on iOS Today for a couple of reasons. One, because you're a writer. Two, because iPad OS, the new iOS 13 version for iPad, really makes it more of a computer that you might want to write on. And three, because we now have some pretty good keyboards, including this. This is the Bridge keyboard. And for anybody who doesn't mind turning their iPad, 11 or 12-inch iPad Pro, into basically a laptop-sized device, this really is the best way to do it. It's the way the Bridge keyboard works is it's got little it's not easy to remove it, but that's, I guess, a good thing. It's got these little hinges with rubber inside that hold the iPad and hold it, as you can see, fairly securely, but it can be removed from those. And then it comes also with, as you might have noticed, a back case, which is just a magnetic case, but that goes on and fits around the hinges. And then what you really get, which is great, is this is a Bluetooth keyboard. So it doesn't use the smart connector, but you really get a keyboard that is, I think, very usable for typing. Backlit also, which the Apple Smart Type keyboard is not. It also is a little less expensive.
It's less expensive than Apple's keyboard.
Yeah, Apple's keyboard, which is considerably flimsier, has the advantage of being lighter, but not really great for a writer, not great for typing. This is much more the kind of keyboard you'd be used to as a writer. And it's
also considerably sexy, I have to say.
Do you like how
that's
it
a
looks?
Good looking,
Yeah,
that's gorgeous.
It kind of turns it with this little notch. It looks a little bit like a MacBook, to be honest.
Absolutely.
With you. Yeah, and I got the slate gray to match the slate gray of my iPad Pro. So I'd be willing to do some writing. In fact, I just did a couple of columns on this because it is a good keyboard that I feel comfortable doing a lot of typing on. But what also I should point out is there's some really great programs for writers on the iPad. For years, I used Pages, of course, and we probably should start with Pages. Let me type Pages and find it because I don't normally use. Hello.
Yeah.
Of course,
Pages.
my iPad has decided to go to sleep. There we go.
There we go.
Pages is a really competent word processor, I think. I think they do a very, very good job. And one of the things about Pages that's interesting is it's really designed as much as a writing tool, although you see it has, and I think for writers, having a clean interface is really important. This is a very clean, there's not a big ribbon bar unless you turn it on. You can turn off, a lot of these view options like page thumbnails, and you can, if you want, see 2 pages at a time. I find that useful for maybe layout, but not so much for editing. The other thing I always turn on is word count. That's right down here at the bottom, because they always want fewer words than I can write. And you can turn on a more traditional ruler if you want, but I think having a clean view as I write is really, really nice. Pages,
and I think that's the advantage of Pages there on iOS versus what
it's
we
much
often
cleaner
see on macOS.
Yeah, much cleaner, isn't it?
Nice and easy to just sit back and process a document versus, I think there's a lot of extra Chrome and cruft that kind of gets in the way on macOS with Pages that makes me less likely to want to use it there, right, versus how it's set up here on iOS.
And as I mentioned, it has a kind of, as do all of the Apple, do we still call these iWork?
I do, but I don't know if that's what they call them anymore.
They do, yeah. But you know what I'm talking about: Pages, Keynote, Numbers, the Apple productivity suite. Always presentation's very important, and so this has some very sophisticated presentation tools. So you can make it look like a much fancier document if you want. I don't know about you, but I suspect that most people who are doing professional writing, or even just maybe you're doing NaNoWriMo in November and you want to write that great American novel or great British or Canadian novel or Swedish novel, you probably want something not formatted, but simple as can be.
Yes. I don't want, Pages just got an update, and I think a few others got an update that allows you to do some very funky things with the text and add weird gradients and textures and whatnot. And certainly if you are putting together, Pages has the feature that allows you to essentially publish an iBook to the books library from Apple. If you are putting together a children's textbook about animals, then those kinds of things make sense. If you're formatting a book of some sort, then maybe those sorts of features make sense. But in terms of getting out your writing, particularly if you're writing for an online publication, 9 times out of 10, how you put it is not going to be how it shows up online. It's going to be in their CMS, in their particular style, with their particular, settings for bold and italicized text and things like that. So the words are the important part. The formatting is less important. But with Pages, although you can kind of cut everything away, it really is meant to be a full-on, not just text editor, but sort of document or project creation tool. Yeah. And like you said, a presentation tool as well.
This is under the More menu, the 3 dots menu. You can really get a sense of all of the things you can do. Smart annotation. It does have change tracking, which is something kind of the big boy word processors like Microsoft Word have that I think a lot of people use an awful lot. There's a presenter mode that really emphasizes the presentation capabilities. And of course, this integrates with Keynote and Numbers as well. But as you mentioned, I think this is the thing that maybe is the most interesting. And the real reason to use Pages, if you wanted to self-publish on Apple Books, This makes it really easy to do so. It's completely integrated into Apple Books. They have a pencil item in the menu, but really there's not much you could do with a pencil except select and scroll and double tap to switch. So it's not like you're going to be, I guess you could insert drawings, but well, maybe it's just because I'm such a lousy artist. But this is free. You have it. All you have to do is download it on Mac and on iPad. It has the benefit, a number of the programs we're going to talk about are cross-platform, Mac and iPad. And the benefit of that is if you save a document, and these as all save into iCloud, having that document in iCloud means you can open it on a Macintosh. You can work on it side by side, Macintosh and iPad. And that's very handy, too. A lot of people, maybe want to sit down at a laptop or a desktop at some point and do some more work on it. I think Pages is great. You should always have Pages on your iPad. I always download it first thing I do. But what do you use? I mean, you do a lot of writing. What is your choice?
Well, okay.
Admit it.
Have to tell you.
Admit it.
I'll admit it. I'm going to admit two things. The first thing I'm going to admit is that despite everyone always saying you should never write in the CMS, never, ever, ever write in the CMS. I think that a lot of people say it's the same people that say don't download developer betas to your daily carry devices.
Yeah, we do all those bad things.
All those people are downloading the developer betas to their daily carry devices. All those people are writing in the CMS. So for folks, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that, it's a tiny bit inside baseball, but it's the content management system. So for example, for a site that you might write for, you go into the website and you create an article in the background, and the text goes into one place, the title goes into another, you upload images, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you click save, then it can be published to the site. You often, if you're working for, as a freelancer, you will send off a text file to, or send off a Google Doc link or what have you to a person, and they will put that into the content management system. Oftentimes, working for Mobile Nations, I would just use the content management system because it's easy to see what changes need to take place, where I want to insert my photos, et cetera. So that's my first thing that I admit. My second thing that I want to admit is that I am just kind of a simple guy when it comes to text editing. And so there's no better app for me than Text Edit on Mac OS.
Wow, that is as primitive as that's like writing in Notepad on Windows. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's Text Edit is so lightweight. I know that I can have it format free, that nothing's going to get weird and wonky. There are apps like Keyboard Maestro and Text Expander that can help you turn formatted text into plain text. And there are keyboard shortcuts that in certain places will let you paste plain text. But I have this mental block where I don't trust those things to do what I need them to do, or I have not taken the time necessarily to memorize those, to remember to use those tools. And so oftentimes I have a text edit document open on my Mac just all day that I will paste text into and then select it and copy it and paste it elsewhere because I know that it will paste without any formatting.
That's the key is you don't want weird stray characters to get into it. This the content management system people might be familiar with. The one I use is WordPress, and so this is the WordPress app on iOS. But you could even do it in the on a browser. But if you were going to write a new article in a content management system, you'd be doing it either in your browser but in something like this. This is my post. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And so you can see it isn't so different from writing in a word processor. It doesn't have any of the features of a word processor, including, for me, a fundamental one, which is a word count. But if I were going to, but one of the advantage of this, maybe it's a disadvantage. In fact, I would say it's more of a disadvantage, is I can publish directly to my WordPress blog by pushing the publish button. And maybe you'd want to go through an editor, a copy editor, or somebody that's look for typos, that kind of thing, before you publish it. It's in my opinion, too easy to publish. But easy is the point, right? It's right there. It's simple to get into. There aren't very many additional features. Spell checking usually is part of iOS, so you'll get
Yes.
spell checking. This is nice because in this case, and I think in a lot of CMS cases, you can view it as it will look, preview it as it will look on the site, which is handy because if you're putting images in or tables or anything, you'll want to see, well, that's how it's going to look on my site before you publish it. So there are some reasons why you might want to do this, but honestly, don't be like Mikah.
Don't be like me.
Don't
That's
edit
what I'm
in
saying.
the CMS. Although everybody I know, Mikah, who writes for online, writes in the CMS. It's just it's just easiest, right?
It's easiest, especially because a lot of websites have not proprietary codes and things like that they have set up that, have an image library carousel or what have you. And so being able to save a draft and see how that's going to look and make sure your text lines up, that's very easy. But if you have all your text in there and you click save, and at that same time, the devs are resetting the database or something like that.
Has that ever happened to you?
I have lost my text twice in the history of writing for the site, and you'd think it would teach me not to write in the CMS, but all it did was teach me to always copy it and paste it into a text edit document before I click save.
That's a very good thing to pay attention to. There are some other programs that people use, and really these are more specialized tools. So the stuff we've showed so far, and I'll mention Bear too in this because a lot of people like to use Bear. One of the advantages Bear has, again, very clean user interface. You could just type right into it, but it supports something called Markdown. Now, I think that's a disadvantage for many of us. For instance, if you're writing for a publication, they don't want Markdown in the text. They just want plain text. But if you're publishing to a site or you're writing for somebody who supports Markdown, this is great. Bear is also available on Macintosh. It synchronizes, so you don't ever have to worry about saving. You also don't ever have to worry about losing your context or your content because it's always synchronizing as you go. Bear is a great little app that is a subscription app, but you could try it for free. Let me show you real quickly some specialized tools, though. This is Wordsmith. This is relatively new. W-E-R-D, like Word. $4.99 a month. It's a subscription. But what it does is it supports a number of features that I think people who are writing novels or screenplays might really want. So we're going to set up the studio here. Start with just plain text. Very simple. There's no controls. It is as simple as can be. So here's how you kind of start in Wordsmith. You just start by writing. But let me see if I can get out of this here. Whoops, that was not how I wanted to get out of it. Not how I wanted to get out of it. I said, do you ever have this? Does this ever happen to you?
Yes, it's the new swipey stuff in iOS or iPadOS.
It is. It's the new swipey stuff. This has a word count, which I really appreciate. So again, I don't know why I'm so fixated on word count, but I guess it's because the last couple of things I've written, and by the way, those are for print, have had such low word counts that I have to really pay attention. When they say you got to get an article in 200 words, that really, you know what I mean. That's hard to do. As Blaise Pascal.
What can you even fit in 200
Well, not
words?
much, but it's like writing a poem. I mean, it's the challenge. So
Please write a haiku for this application.
There's the capture an idea part. Start a project, so you can also, do projects. I don't know how that's different than capture an idea. I do like the idea of setting a writing ritual. So this will give you reminders to do your writing ritual, and that's for a lot of people, the idea of doing it on a regular basis is a really great idea. This is the trial version. I haven't paid for it. You get 1 week free trial, so I haven't set up a Wordsmith account yet. But once you have the account, of course, it will synchronize. But one of the things I like about Wordsmith, and I think a lot of people, here's a commitment. The commitment is $4.17 a month if you buy a year. That's a commitment. $4.99 a month if you go month to month. Now, one thing I will mention about this is Wordsmith supports formatting like scripts. So if you're writing a movie script, that's a very specific format. And movie scripts, you can't even submit them if you have the wrong format. The other thing I like is the ability to work in dark mode. I think sometimes people like that. I like sunset because it's not dark. It's just not bright white. So yeah, do you write in dark mode? So some people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like dark mode most of the time. I like to read in dark mode as well. You can hit the
I read in
Safari
dark mode.
reader button.
Yeah. Writing in dark mode, I feel like it's gonna be like it's a dark and stormy night. I don't want to.
Makes the adjectives you use are suddenly very gloomy and so I like the idea, like you said, with the movie scripts thing. That's the thing about each of these apps that we're talking about is each of them have their own little quirks and interesting features that some of the others don't have. And a lot of times that's what it comes down to is you find the one that really works for you because it has X, Y, or Z tool that you really need to use. And so you end up sticking with that. And I'm excited to talk about these Ulysses and IA Writer because they are very similar apps. I think you dropped in Ulysses and I dropped in IA Writer.
So show us IA Writer, because and I will put it up on the screen so that we can show it, because this is one of the newer ones in this category that people are really liking. I'm just going to install it real quickly while you talk about it.
Perfect. Yeah. So when I
$8.99.
It is. It's $9, but there's no subscription.
Yeah,
so you get it. It's yours.
Like
you
that.
can use it forever. That's what I like about it as well. With IA Writer, when I'm being good and not using a CMS, the IA Writer is the app that I like to use. It supports Markdown, and it supports Markdown formatting. So you can very easily, most of the sites that I was writing for used Markdown as sort of their backbone, and so knowing how it was going to look and being able to organize things according to Markdown was very handy. And that's one of the things that, IA Writer and Ulysses, again, are very similar about. But what I love about IA Writer, and again, this is similar for others, is that I can use it on my Mac, I can use it on my iPad, and it's all pulling from the same place. It syncs to your iCloud account and lets you make text editing, choices from there. Again, it has dark mode. It also links with Medium, WordPress, and Ghost, which I don't know what Ghost is.
That's an open source blogging platform I like quite a bit.
There we go.
That's one of the things you also might want to look for is a way to, automatically link these to the places you're going to publish. I love that idea. So you're talking about IA Writer now. I can actually link it up to my Ghost blog or to Medium if I post on Medium.
And WordPress.
And WordPress, if I post to WordPress. I think that's a nice feature because then you're not writing in the CMS, but you have many of the same abilities to kind of easily publish it. So I think that's a good kind of in-between compromise.
Yes. And another thing I like, it supports URL commands. So if you get very fancy with things and you want to use X callback URL and certain interface and data commands, then you can read and write to servers and things like that.
I could use drafts to do a quick sketch and put it into IA Writer. And that's cool. Syncs to iCloud, which I always like to see because that means it's saved immediately as we go. And that means you're not going to have that's just horrendous to write for a day and lose it all.
Yeah, and it makes it very easy to open in IA Writer from other apps and files on both iOS and on macOS, as well as the ability to change your template around. So different ways. If you have a template that matches how it's going to look on your site, that's really nice to have. So you can see kind of exactly how it would look when it gets there. So many tools for adjusting your editing, including one thing that IA Writer likes to brag about, which is the focus mode. And focus mode allows you to specifically focus on a sentence at a time. And then it sort of slides out of the way. The next sentence comes up and you can continue to type and stay focused right there on that. This is really handy for folks who are trying to just, I think about writers who are writing books and things like that, where the point is to get those words out on the page, not to do too much editing of yourself, and to just boom, 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 get it out.
You see the sentence I'm writing is bright, and the rest of them as I'm going
sort of fade into the background. And it feels a little Star Warsy, which is kind of fun. Leo, I think you'll like this feature, which is both syntax highlighting and ability to choose. You can choose between words, characters, sentences, estimated reading time.
Nice.
And if you have tasks, then you can set it to have tasks. So that's in settings, editor, and then underneath appearance show stats.
I always I hit on this keyboard and on any smart keyboard.
To see the keyboard.
If you hold down the function key, the fan key, you'll see them, and you can see this is a very rich program with lots of keystrokes. That means you don't remove your fingers from the keyboard very often, and I actually really appreciate that.
Yes. And then the other thing that I want to talk about, it is not on, it technically is on iOS, but what I like about it on macOS is the ability to share, to copy and paste different types of, how do I put this? The format can change. So when I copy text on, I probably have it in Markdown, for example. And when I copy that text, I can either copy it just as the plain text, but in Markdown format, or I can copy it formatted so it is in rich text format, or I can copy it as HTML. And so there are 3 different ways to essentially copy that text as is with formatting in place or as HTML, and then to be able to paste that somewhere with all of my changes intact according to how I have Markdown set up. That is so handy. And I've used that 100 times when I am doing notes for a show or something like that, where I need to be able to paste actual HTML or formatted text into the content management system before publishing. And it makes it very, very easy to do that. And the last thing that I want to mention with this that I find handy is kind of being able to look throughout your document. So depending on, the number of headings that you have and where you're trying to get in the document, you can sort of choose like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and get there super quickly. So navigating around, finding the words that you're looking for, and being able to easily go between headings and subheadings, etc., is very handy. And on iOS, they make it super simple to see the sort of final preview. You could just hit at the top right corner, there's a play button. And
yeah, I love that. I couldn't figure out at first what that is, but that's the preview. That makes sense.
That shows you what it's going to look like at the end. Yeah. And then the share sheet has a bunch of options for just plain old sharing and exporting in printing. Markdown and PDF and HTML and Microsoft Word and an archive. So I really like IA Writer. I think at this point, the thing for me is the fact that it was a one-time purchase and that I can sync so easily between iOS and macOS makes it sort of doubly handy for me.
It also has some templates, additional fonts. The font choices in there are a little odd, but I think having used them for a while, I could see the advantage of very simple and don't distract you with the fonts. But they do have some other choices there that in the custom templates field that means you can do that. When you said syntax highlighting, I thought programming, but actually it isn't for programming. It's highlighting of in the editor of adjectives, nouns, adverbs, verbs, and conjunctions. And I think for a writer, that might be kind of helpful, especially adverbs. I hate adverbs. So does Stephen King. So I made all my adverbs purple. So it's really easy to notice when I'm using a lot of them, like really, really, really easy. Or maybe too many conjunctions because you're getting run-on sentences. This is great. The stats are showing here, and again, I need that word count. Now we've a couple. Oh, and it has regular expression searching, which is really a fantastic feature that's normally not seen in iOS apps. It's something that things like BB Edit have, but on the desktop. But having it in iOS is fantastic. I need
to ask you the best way to. to learn regular expressions. I don't know what it is, but I hope you know, because I would like to. There are so many ways I would use that, and I just have not taken the time to learn.
I would recommend a fantastic book. Now, we're getting really advanced here, so we're gonna explain what Markdown is in a second, and now let me explain what regular expressions are. That is a term that programmers use as a way of. It's basically a advanced search. A regular expression is a kind of a program term, a code snippet you can use to say things like, whenever the sentence begins with a capital U, replace that with a capital B. Or that doesn't sound very useful, but it's very specific in being able to do the searches. Every time I use the name Adolf, I want you to change that to Alice in the entire book. Those things are very handy. Regular expressions can get very, very complicated. And if you want to really learn it, there is really only one great book. There's a lot of online tutorials, but I would recommend a book called Mastering Regular Expressions. It's written by a guy named Jeffrey Friedel, Friedl, and it is the definitive work on regular expressions. It's actually enjoyable reading. It's well written, and I had the first edition, which was kind of skinny, and then he wrote a second edition, which is really thick. There it is. It's from O'Reilly. Highly recommended. But now, if you get through this book, you will be a regular expressions master.
Third edition now.
Oh yeah, the third. It looks like I have to go out and buy a new one. So yeah, I like IA Writer. I hadn't really played with it before. Now you've kind of convinced me this might be my future writing tool. I really like it. Let me show you. We'll get a couple more. These are tools that people who do a lot of research with their writing might want. You mentioned Ulysses, and Ulysses, as you say, is similar to IA Writer. I think one of the things Ulysses does, well, here's one thing it does. It doesn't work on iOS 13. Oh, wait a minute. It finally opened. Okay. Maybe it was just taking a long time to think about it. Here's a tour of the interface. The main library. A lot of these bear Ulysses, Scrivener, and of course IA Writer, like Notes, like Apple Notes, have a left-hand column where all the text you write is stored. And we'll look at this full introduction. They have a good tutorial online. You could see that Ulysses is very pretty. It allows you to put images in there. It has footnotes. It's actually a kind of sophisticated writing tool. But this is a monthly subscription, I think, as I remember. So something to keep in mind. It's not as inexpensive as IA Writer. I think a lot of people are using IA Writer right now. The other thing that people do with it is keep track of research. So you see you have a library, but you also have projects, and within the projects you can have additional pages. So it's not unusual if you're writing a novel or a long article for a magazine where you'd have a lot of research, and you'd want to keep track of those notes in the same place that you keep your text. And that's the real features of Ulysses, and this is Scrivener. Also has a desktop app. A lot of people have been using Scrivener for years. It's extremely powerful. Also not free, but I think there's a subscription on this one too. You can see I could save a new project, not on iCloud, but on my iPad or in Dropbox. So if you're a Dropbox user, you'll like this. This shows the age of Scrivener. In the early days of iCloud document syncing, it was really broken. It didn't work well. And some of the older programs just don't want to do it on iCloud. All the newer programs do. Apple's fixed iCloud document syncing. So this is a really powerful program that allows you to put your research in the same place you're doing your writing, tie them together. Lots of advanced organizational tools like outlining. This is the problem, is that everybody's going to have a favorite. We're just really giving you a surface level tour of some of the choices out there. But what's really exciting is there are really good writing tools available for the iPad. And I think given the portability of the iPad, the clarity of the screen, especially if you have the new big 12.9-inch, some of the nice keyboards now available, I mean, it might be a really perfect writing tool a kind of almost
It's so
a less
portable.
lower distraction, and it's very portable. You could take this to the park. You could take it to a library. You could take it on your trip or your tours or your travels. Tell me, you mentioned a few of these programs use Markdown. What is Markdown?
Yes. So Markdown, it's interesting. I had to learn how to use it. Like I said, when I worked at Newsy, we just did writing and did anchoring. And so whenever I started doing some tech writing for the web, I remember Renee Ritchie said, "Do you know how to use Markdown? That's what we use for the site." I said, "What is that?" And sort of had to learn it. But the reason I bring that up is because it's a very simple thing to learn. It's a markup language that you use with plain text. And so essentially, the way this works is you get to kind of just type as you normally would, and you can very easily tell something that can read Markdown how to convert it, how to format it according to how you have it set up. So an example of this, Leo is actually going through and kind of showing some examples of Markdown here.
I'm trying to remember links. This is the problem, is you have to remember it. So you can see if I put it in play mode, that this is what it'll appear as. This one is bold and italicized because I did 3 asterisks. This is underlined, so it's italicized. So as you're typing, I see what happened. I had too many asterisks, maybe. There we go. That's italicized. I thought that would be bold.
I can't see well from here, but bold is 2 asterisks on either side. Italicized is 1 asterisk on either side. You can also use some
underscores.
You can use different ones depending. Underscores are what a lot of people use. 1 octothorpe or hashtag or £, depending on what you want to call it, is an H1 in HTML. 2 is H2, and then paragraphs, of course, there's no formatting required other than if you put a blank line between the last piece of text and the next one. That's what makes a paragraph.
Weird. So this is using some sort of non-standard. There's also a link syntax. It's a little complicated. It was written by Marco Arment. No, I'm sorry, John Gruber. Who you may remember as the guy behind Daring Fireball, the blogger behind Daring Fireball. He wrote it because he wanted a quick and easy way to, in text, show formatting. It's become a very popular kind of standardized language. There's original Markdown, and then I think this is using a variant of that. Then there's a lot of variations of it. So you'll always want to look at the help file to figure out how to do the various Markdown things. But it's nice because if you need formatting, you can put it in, and then you can use the regular expression search to remove it if your editor says, "What the hell are all those things?" So.
What's going on here? Well, and that's the other thing is, like with IA Writer and with some other apps, I can go ahead and make my document in Markdown, which is how I like to use it, and then when I copy it and paste it into a Google Doc or in an email or whatever, I can paste it as plain text, or I can paste it as formatted, or paste it as HTML, and that's what's super handy, I think. Markdown. Now that I know how to use it, I love to write with Markdown because, kind of like we're saying, Leo, you talked earlier, you like to see the keyboard shortcuts that are available. Markdown lets you continue to keep your fingers on the keyboard very easily, as opposed to if you were working in the CMS and it doesn't support Markdown, having to, I got to highlight this text and then click the B button, or highlight this text and then Command I. Those are a bunch of different changes you have to make versus just being able to continue to bap away, I guess is the word I've just come up with. Bap away at the keyboard.
I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's John's original Markdown article, which you can read from 2004 when he introduced it, and it really took off. So a lot of credit to John Gruber for creating Markdown and all the people now who've implemented Markdown in many of these writing tools. So there's a few. We should mention, I guess, you also have the Notes app. You wanted to add that because that is on every iOS device. It's even on Macintosh, syncs with all the same. So it's and it's gotten better and better. In fact, in iOS 13, they've added even more features to the Notes app. So
if they would just get rid of that nasty oatmeal texture in the background, then we'd all be a lot happier.
Skeuomorphic still, for some reason.
Yes.
It's the last skeuomorphic app that is emulating a real-life pad of paper. Yeah, oatmeal. I like that. We should say the Bridge keyboard, $150 for the 12.9 inch. I think it's $130 for the 11.9 inch iPad Pro. Pages is free. Apple's Notes app is free. Scrivener is $19.99, one-time fee. And for Wordsmith and Ulysses, you've got monthly $5 a month subscriptions. And finally, a flat $8.99 for IA Writer. I think after looking at all of these, I think I might kind of try your recommendation, IA Writer, and start using that a little bit more. I'm pretty impressed with all the things it can do, and I do agree with you that one-time fee is attractive. It's not that I don't want to support people with a subscription. It's just that I don't write so often. If I were a ink-stained wretch that had to write every single day, maybe, but I don't write all that much. And when paying once for an app that I'm going to use maybe 6 times a year, that's a pretty good deal.
Precisely how I feel about it. And honestly, if IA Writer, that's the thing for me, like IA Writer right now costs $9. It comes out with some new features in the future that are behind an in-app purchase. I would gladly, buy those, pay for those or whatever. Depending on the app, I understand wanting to support and everything like that, and it just depends on the service and sort of what's provided, where that can make a difference on, okay, to join Netflix, Hulu, and all these other ones that I'm paying every month, do I want to add this as well?
Right.
Can make the difference.
Right. Pretty interesting program, IA Writer. I think I have. Oh, I just bought it.
There you go. It's done.
Let's take a break. We've got questions from last week we didn't get to. We've got a lot of very big news. And we've got a brand new host, Mikah Sargent. I want to welcome you to iOS Today. Our show today brought to you by Mikah. You might need this if you're going to start working for Twit.
Yes.
We all use this a lot. Calm.com, the #1 app for reducing your stress, helping you sleep better, relaxing your mind with meditation. Calm is fantastic. I keep it on my iPhone. I keep it on my iPad. And I love its motto. Take a deep breath. Every day you'll get a new daily calm. Oh, today's the one I got to listen to. Mindful eating.
Welcome to the Daily Calm. Today, we'll be exploring the benefits of mindful eating.
Yes.
Start by taking a comfortable position.
So this is going to be a guided meditation, and I think people probably think of Calm as a meditation app, and certainly it is that, but there's so much more in Calm Premium. There are lots of sleep tools. For instance, some of the sleep stories are fantastic. Listen to The Velveteen Rabbit, a great children's story, or learn about the Orient Express or the Trans-Siberian Railroad. You can even listen to Dr. Orma's Sleep Science.
Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Orma.
While you sleep.
I'm a psychologist and specialist in helping people with their sleep.
It is a fantastic app for that. There are a ton of sleep stories, even from some very famous people like Matthew McConaughey, or Jerome Flynn, who is in Game of Thrones, the sellsword in Game of Thrones. There are children's stories that you probably want to listen to with your kids. There are historic stories. There's tours.
I'm Anna Acton.
And there are many different voices.
I'll be reading you a sleep story called Once Upon a Time in Bavaria.
Oh, my. Here's an ASMR story, The Myth of Atlantis.
Good evening. Tonight's ASMR sleep story takes
tingles.
Tingles. Are you susceptible to? You're going to love this. This is
the whispers don't get me, but some of the noises certainly do.
Yeah. It gives you that little tingly feeling. I don't know if that's conducive for sleep or not. It feels good, that's for sure. Here's some guided meditation you can see in a lot of areas: stress, self-care, inner peace, focus, relationships. Did you know Moby's most recent album was released exclusively on Calm.com? I'm a massive Moby fan, and the ambient music in this new Moby album is really great, not only for sleeping or relaxing, but also for working. One of the things I like while I'm writing is to have music without lyrics, instrumental music in the background. And it can't be so forward that you pay attention to it, but it just kind of brings down the background noise and lets you focus. I love that. I use Calm, now that I think about it, all the time for so many things. You're going to love Calm. Stress, according to the World Health Organization, is the #1 epidemic of the 21st century. Yes, we are all stressed, but with Calm, you'll discover a whole library of simple tools to help you relax. So if you're stressed, take a deep breath and get Calm. Right now, we got 25% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/iOS today. It's a great gift, too. I've given it to family members, and they just love it. calm.com/iOS today. We thank Calm for helping Leo become more mindful and for supporting our show. We thank you for supporting it, too, by using that URL, calm.com/iOS today. I feel much better. I think we might have to start making that be an employee benefit for people who work at Twit. They get calm.com.
I could use that for getting ready to move.
Yeah,
so
there's nothing calming about moving.
Balls to the other side of my face.
Micah's moving out here to Petaluma from Missouri, from his home in Missouri, with his 2 Chihuahuas. And we're looking forward to having you out here.
Actually, they could use Calm now that I think about it. Do they have dog Calm?
I think
they
if
should.
You put it on, I bet you Henri and Mizzy would do you call him Henri or Henry?
Okay, it's a long story. It's a semi-long story. His name is pronounced Henry, but I know it's spelled like Henri. And the reason why, and I'll try to get through this quickly.
Spelled with an I.
Adopted
spelled
him
the French style. Yeah.
Spelled Henri. I adopted him from a place in Missouri that's spelled Versailles. But everybody in that city
calls it Versailles. I know.
Versailles.
Yeah. So you got Henry from Versailles.
Exactly. Yes.
That is pretty funny.
And also the king, there was a King Henry of France who would go, he had a hunting lodge that he would go to in Versailles. And so it kind of all ties together.
Would he bring his Chihuahuas hunting?
I don't think he had a Chihuahua. No. I think he probably had some sort of deer hound or wolfhound, probably.
Something a little bigger. I can't wait to meet the puppies. And by the way, we've already told you, and I know you know this, but tell the world, you have to bring them to work with you every day. They are going to.
Well, this is what Lisa was saying.
Well, we miss Ozzy, who was our mascot for many years, our Papillon, and so having a little Chihuahua, or should I say Papillon, having a little Chihuahua around or a couple of them will be very nice. Big story, the big news story of the week: Johnny Ive departing Apple. This is the Wall Street Journal article that said he was a little miffed. He was a little disturbed by the fact that Tim Cook just wasn't appreciating design very much. Tim is an operations guy. Cook immediately wrote the Wall Street Journal saying, "That's absurd. That is not why Johnny left. Johnny's in his 50s, so he's a little young to be retiring, but I think he probably felt like the partnership he had with Steve Jobs was a lot like Lennon and McCartney. And when Steve passed away in 2011, I think it got a little harder for Johnny. This is my projection onto it, not to have that partner that he worked so closely with. Of course, Apple rewarded Johnny by giving him a lot more money and a lot more power. He was in charge of all user interface design at Apple. By the end, he also designed, this is his last great project, the Spaceship Campus, the Apple Park campus. But after I think he finished that, I think he started, we could all see that he was his attention was wandering. The Journal story said he didn't show up very often, only maybe a couple of times a month at the Apple campus. So the design team remains. They will now report to Jeff Williams, Apple's chief operations officer. There is no kind of Johnny Ive replacement, just as there's really no Steve Jobs replacement. What do you think, Micah? Is that going to be bad or good for Apple? Gruber thought it was a problem.
I think it depends on sort of the true story. I think that, some people made some very good points that there's certainly a difference between being there day to day and managing and leading, and not being there and sort of leading from afar, which is apparently what Johnny Ive had been doing for a while. And now at this point being an outside force. The fact is, Ive seems like the kind of person who gets fixated on a project and isn't going to just put it down and let somebody else sort of completely take over. And so with the Apple Watch and Apple Park and projects like that, there was some visionary drug involved, I think, in that process that didn't quite let him just kick those to the side. Yeah. And so if Apple is coming forward with more of those kinds of things in the future, even though Johnny Ive is working from an outside force, I still see him playing that role of like really wanting to sink his teeth into whatever it is and make it happen. But the other thing we can't forget is, as much as we like to see kind of, I think, companies and especially companies that we love kind of as individual people who are these heroes and these pistols, that's really not the full story. And everything takes a team. No one single person is doing everything from step 1 to step 795. And there's so much involved and so many people involved in making these things happen, making these decisions. And so I'm kind of the mindset that it's not great, but if there's any truth to sort of the unhappiness of the team or of Johnny Ive himself or whomever, then this makes sense to me. And I'm interested to see how the process works moving forward.
Yeah. Johnny came to Apple in '98 along with Steve, kind of coming back from exile. His first design was the eMate, which is kind of a little early look at what the Bondi Blue iMac would end up being, of course, one of his most famous designs. And 12 years ago, June 29th, 2007, one of the very first calls placed on an iPhone, the brand new iPhone, was to Johnny Ive by Steve Jobs. That iPhone design, of course, a Johnny Ive design, as have all of Apple's products been Johnny and his team. And you're right, we shouldn't really just say Johnny Ive. We should say Johnny and his team. He was responsible, I think the last few products he was responsible for, the Apple Watch, the AirPods, and I guess the HomePod too, probably a Johnny Ive joint production with the Apple design team. So he's really done some amazing design work. Apple's quick to point out Johnny is starting his own company and will be working closely with Apple. In fact, according to some sources, they'll be paying Johnny several $1 million a year for his designs. So this is Tim Cook's letter to the team talking about Johnny moving on after nearly 30 years in Apple. He's going to start an independent design firm. Evans Hankey and Alan Dye, who were also on Ive's team, will now take the lead on design. And as I mentioned, they'll be working under Jeff Williams. So it is, I think it's appropriate to acknowledge it's a changing of the guard at Apple. It's just, like Steve passing away. It's a new regime at Apple. Tim Cook is an operations guy, not a design guy, not an architect, not a coder. Not an engineer, really. He's an industrial engineer in the sense that he does processes. So I don't know. We'll watch with interest, see what happens. I think in some cases it might be a good thing. For instance, I think Johnny's love of thinner and thinner led to basically dysfunctional MacBook Pro design, especially with the keyboard, and so maybe and poor battery life. So maybe this will begin a reversal of that trend. We can get a little fatter, guys. A little fatter would be okay.
It's okay. We can put some more space in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Eddie Q says Apple Music has surpassed 60 million subscribers. It's not growing quite as torridly as it was last year, but it's still growing at a nice pace. And 60 million is a pretty good number. Still smaller than Spotify. They have 100 million subscribers globally, and more than that, of course, using the free tier. Let me ask you, because you're a young person, you're a millennial. What do you? What's your music choice? Don't tell me.
Choice or
streaming music.
Choice?
What's your choice for listening to music? Don't tell me. I'm going to guess Spotify, because almost all the young people I know use Spotify. What do you like?
I am of the Christina Warren variety, in that I, for some reason, have more than one subscription
so do
that I
I.
don't really need, but have anyway.
But that's an
I'm
occupational
subscribed to
hazard.
It is an occupational hazard. I'm subscribed to both Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah.
I use Apple Music for a lot of time. I just like to listen through an album. And so Apple Music is great for just finding the music that I want exactly, collecting albums, collecting artists, and saving them. Spotify's playlists and algorithmic discovery is wonderful. So if I just want to hit play and let that thing play through the day, I like to use Spotify for that. Apple Music doesn't do a good job there.
I finally killed my Spotify, but I do miss Discover Weekly, which was that regular playlist they make every week of songs that you might like based on the songs that you've been listening to. And I think that is really useful. Apple should do something like that. I have to say, though, I had Google Music, and this morning, of all things, I had a family subscription. I killed it because everybody in my family seems to prefer the Apple Music family subscription. And so I didn't see any reason to have both. I still have Amazon Unlimited, which I don't want. So I'm narrowing it down. I think I'm gonna narrow it down to Apple Music, especially now that Sonos supports Apple Music. That's the big music player I have in my house. So yeah, there's the article that Apple Music and Spotify have helped indie labels double their market share, and that's the good news, if you ask me. I mean, if you're one of the big labels, one of the big three, you're not happy about it. But I think it's good for listeners that independent labels are now 40% of the music market. That's doubled in the days of the CD and before it, the vinyl record and cassette. That is really,
and that has
good
everything
news.
to do with discovery.
Yeah,
You know, that those algorithmic discovery engines, it's not just basically letting the recording industries and the money that's involved there determine what music gets listened to because it gets on the radio and it gets here, there, and everywhere. I'm discovering new artists all the time because of those algorithmic playlists. And that is why I love having those features, because I just get to find a whole bunch of new music, and it's great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's if you're going to point to one, you know, sometimes people say, oh, the artists don't make as much and so forth, but you're going to point to one really big contribution from streaming music and playlists and things like Apple Music and Spotify. It's that the indie artist has a better shot at than before. Maybe they're not making quite as much money as the platinum artists of the golden era of recording, but if they can make a living, I think that's pretty good. You know who may not be making a living? The publishers who are using Apple News Plus for subscriptions. So let me ask you, because with Apple News Plus, the first month I did it because it was a trial, and I didn't really use it, so I stopped the subscription. How about you? Do you use News Plus?
See, I'm notorious for sort of forgetting. Again, I feel like it's
just automatically renewing, huh?
Yeah, but not this time. This is where I have stepped out of that. I recognized that I was not going to be using it. Yeah. I think we all have that. It's the same reason why we had magazine subscriptions. You know, your ideal self may read every article in the New Yorker, but your actual realized self has a stack of 90, New Yorker magazines that you've only ever looked through 2 articles in. And the same thing applies here. My ideal self would be using Apple News Plus and those subscriptions to check out a bunch of new magazines and have access to special sections of different publications, but my realized self does not have that interest. And so I did cancel it. To be perfectly honest, I did forget and did get charged 1 month after the free subscription, but ultimately I did not stick with it. It was not for me.
So according to Business Insider, they interviewed a lot of publishing executives. Apple had promised them revenue 10 times greater than they got from Texture, because basically News Plus is Apple's, Apple bought Texture, rebranded it as News Plus. Texture was one of our sponsors, a magazine subscription service. Publishers say in some cases they're making half what they made from Texture, and in no case are they making more, and Texture didn't make them very much. So it sounds like Apple News Plus is, I would expect Apple to do something to revive it, because it sounds like it's failing at this point. We have a couple of feedback questions, and we'll get to our app caps. You ready for some questions?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, one's an answer. One is an answer I will not need until you arrive here.
Okay.
As you may have noticed, it's sometimes hard for me to get here exactly at 9 Pacific I'm not used to getting up that early in the morning. Maybe, I'm hoping it will be for you too. But Megan was often sitting here waiting for me to arrive. Has nothing to do with her quitting, I'm told, but maybe it does. And so I've been looking for a way. My question was, is there a native way in Apple Shortcuts to set it up so that when I leave the house, it sends a text message? What I'd like is it would send a text message to Megan saying Leo's on his way with a pin on the map where I am right now that's live and would follow me, so she'd have some idea what my ETA is. At least Leo's on his way. His ETA is 10 minutes from now. Unfortunately, no one has found a native way to do that. We found ways with If This Then That, Zapier, and other tools, Glimpse. Here's one that actually I had used for many, many years. This is from Matt. He said, if you have Automatic, the OBD2 device that plugs into that port under your steering wheel, you can use it with If This Then That, so that whenever I start the car, an automatic message can be sent to whoever you want, including Megan, via email or SMS. Leo's in his car now and on his way. I actually did that for a long time. In fact, I did exactly that with Automatic because I had one of those plugged into my OBD2 port. It would say, it would send a tweet. I don't know if you remember this, but I would
tweet.
My Twitter would say Leo's on his way to the studio. I think maybe I had it set so that when I arrived at the studio, it would say Leo's at the studio, get ready to go, or something like that.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, I turned it off.
I have an idea, though. I'm not saying yes or no yet.
Yeah, you may want me to do this, so go ahead. Tell me. Let's get a solution.
Well, so I wonder, and again, I haven't tested it, but Apple's HomeKit platform lets you use very specific location features to control scenes, and so you can set scene. So if you could have like sort of a dummy scene that's tied to your location, and then in Shortcuts say, when this scene runs, then send a message to whomever.
Let's try
with my location.
That's a good idea.
That's possible.
Let's try it.
Yeah.
Maybe blink the lights in your office. Leo's on his way.
Yeah, that'd be fun too. It's just like the Leo light, and it's next to the live and on air.
I'm not sure
light.
I want that. I like to surprise people once in a while.
I'm here. It's like, oh no, Leo's here.
He's here. Thank you, though, Matt. That's a great idea, a great tip, and it's in fact something that works quite well. Jim from North Carolina says, I came across this ad via a cord cutter article. It sounds too good to be true. The ad is for a book on Amazon. In fact, let's show the book on Amazon. It basically the idea is if you make a really good antenna, you'll never have to pay for internet again. Now, I should point out that the author of the book, Randy Benjamin, also writes science fiction. This is science fiction in its own right. The only way this would work is if you pointed this antenna at somebody in your neighborhood who has an open Wi-Fi access spot, forgot to secure their Wi-Fi with a password. The best way to use something like this is to search for, Linksys. We had some years ago on the radio show, a woman called up, said, my Wi-Fi doesn't work anymore. I said, oh really? Tell me about it. She said, yes, called Linksys. I was connected to Linksys. Did they go out of business?
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
And I said, no, that's your neighbor's Wi-Fi. They probably finally figured out you were using it. Amazing. So there is no such thing. Well, there is such a thing as free internet, but this is not how it works. There are still providers that provide internet, ad-supported internet. It's not very good. But if you can't afford internet, it's better than nothing. But making a giant antenna.
Other books by Randy Benjamin. Authors turn your books into audiobooks. How to publish anything on Amazon's Kindle. How to transfer cassettes to CD. And something called Fermilab, Forging the Keys to Hell.
That's his science fiction.
Actually, I think that's the one. If you forge a key to hell, then
your internet will be free. It's true. It's true. Do not spend $11.66 to make this antenna, because it is an antenna to nowhere unless you find somebody who's sharing their. Are these reviews? Yeah, there's some reviews. That probably also tell you a little bit about what to expect from this book.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Here's, oddly enough, am I still in the right book? Yeah, because this review says, it says, very reasonably priced for critical ingredient in ketogenic diets.
What?
Easy to use and as well. Somehow I feel like this is not the review of that particular book, and yet Amazon somehow
maybe someone
there's
got some
wire
reviews to
crossed.
pump up their.
Yeah, and this one says it's interesting to read, but basically it's all about whether you're willing to steal internet service from your neighbors. Okay, good. Yeah, no,
Amazing.
not useful. Although I have a feeling Mr. Benjamin himself wrote this review. Mr. Benjamin is the real thing. He knows what he's talking about.
Oh, Mr. Benjamin.
Mr. Benjamin.
We appreciate
All right.
your hustle.
Thank you for your emails. We have a new email address, or at least we're setting one up. If you have a question for us, we love it if you record it, audio or video, make it 30 seconds or less. Start with your first name only and the city you're from. And you can either put it up on the internet or mail it directly to, get ready for this, iOS Today at twit.tv. Ta-da! Our new address. Used to go to Megan at twit.tv.
Wish I had like a dry erase board. I would have put that up here.
Well, you have for next time you have a project. iOS, it's easy. iOS Today at twit.tv. Mikah, I realized that we kind of have been using your app caps up. You had to get your app cap from your mom last time.
Yeah.
Do you have a hat for today?
I do. And here's the thing. It's going to look similar to the one before, but I'm going for, a sunny theme because pretty soon I'm going to be moving to all sun all the time.
California. Yes.
So today, let me grab it.
Oh,
this is my gardener's hat.
I like it. It looks good on you. It's got a very, very large, yes, there's the sun, very, very large brim. Rather, in fact, really more like an umbrella than a hat.
It is very umbrella-like.
That's a great hat. Bring it out here. I am wearing a hat that was sent to me by the technology comedian Dan Nanan. He is a lovely fella. He said, I got a bunch of these hats to give as gifts to my Turo.com renters. Turo lets you rent your car to people who rent my Tesla. I thought you'd enjoy having one. Thanks so much for all you do, Dan. This is a postcard from the Hyatt Regency Tokyo. I guess Dan's doing some traveling. He also sent along his blood pressure, weight, and heart rate. Now, which is really, really low, Dan. I hope you're still alive. Heart rate 42. He's making fun of me because I have devices that tweet my weight and blood pressure to the internet. Don't ask.
Leo?
Don't ask.
Okay.
I'm wearing this today in a way of mourning because as Mikah arrives, my Tesla is departing. The lease on our Tesla runs out on the 22nd, and I'm not going to get another one, so I won't be able to wear this app cap ever again. So I thought I'd wear it. So thank you, Dan, for the Tesla cap, and I guess I'll wear it in good health for at least a couple more weeks.
Is that because your next car is a TARDIS, or what's the deal?
Yeah, I'm gonna live in a TARDIS. Well, it's a long story. You don't care, but
I do care.
We decided to get I like electric cars, and I'm going to get another electric car in a year and a half when the lease on our ICE vehicle runs out, our Audi. But Lisa did buy a Chevy Bolt electric vehicle, which we like quite a bit, and it's quite a bit less expensive than a Tesla.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, I think my Tesla days are over. My Model X, I love it, and I cried when I got it, and I expect I will cry when I bring it back.
Oh,
but I'll wear the hat, thanks to Dan. Now, app caps, the hats we wear, symbolize something very important on this show. There we go. There's your app cap, superimposed on top of.
Excuse me.
Hello.
Excuse me. Blue hat. Hello.
Superimposed on top of our new host. Mikah, you can start. We wear these caps to symbolize our picks of the week.
Yes. So my pick of the week is a very, very simple pick. It is free with in-app purchases. It's called Background. You may have heard of the site Unsplash.
Oh, I use their wallpapers all the time.
Yes. And Background gives you easy access to Unsplash's wallpapers. And this is how simple it is. It works really well on an iPhone. And so I'm going to pop open background on my iPhone, and as soon as you start, it shows you sort of the latest screens that look great as wallpapers. It can show you featured wallpapers that they've chosen, and then also give you a place to search. And it has this really nice parallax effect. I think the parallax effect can be a little jarring at times, but it gives you a full view of the photo. And you simply swipe through until you find one you like. And this is the best part. You just long press on the photo, and it saves it right to your camera roll, ready to be turned into a wallpaper.
Nice.
So it's very easy access to wallpapers that look fantastic. You get to see them sort of full-sized on your screen, which I find is really nice, being able to see, okay, this is what it's going to look like whenever I sort of save this. And I just hold down, and it gives me a nice little haptic feedback and says, all right, I've saved that for you. It's ready to be turned into a wallpaper when you're ready. And then you can go ahead and go into your settings and make that change. So that, again, super simple app, but I really like Unsplash's. Those are the wallpapers that I use most of the time for my devices. And so background is a great way to access those. And more importantly, to see how they're going to look when you install them. I think that's kind of the big difference between just going to Unsplash's website and using this app is you can very easily see, okay, full screen, this is exactly what it's going to look like.
That's great. I love Unsplash. And I like, can you have it be rotating as well, like a different wallpaper every day?
So the app is automatically updating.
Apple doesn't do that.
Apple doesn't let you, although I do use a side, I'm going to tie this together, a side app cap that's for the Mac. It's called Wallpaper Wizard. And it also connects to Unsplash, and it lets you on your Mac rotate wallpapers beautifully. I have two displays here, and each of them are independent. They rotate every 30 minutes to new ones, and it's always getting new ones from Unsplash. It's very handy. Cool. So that's Wallpaper. Yeah, now it's number 2, Wallpaper Wizard 2. For your Mac.
You're new here, Mikah, so you don't know, but Megan and I, so Megan was always big about this inbox 0 thing. I have inbox 25,992. My email is useless to me, but I'm always looking for a better way to do email. And I have to say, the iPad comes with a really great mail program from Apple. I've shown years ago, I thought, a very interesting take on email that treated email more like messaging. Messaging works for me and for a lot of people. We prefer it to email, don't we? So this program was called Hop. They've rebranded to Spike.
Next they'll be Jump.
But I'm glad they're still around, because honestly, this is a great program, Spike Mail. It's free for personal use. If you want to use it in business, for teams and stuff. In other words, kind of the idea is turn your email into Slack. You can, but I really am liking Spike a lot. Spike. So I'll give you an example. I had a little conversation with a guy named Matt Foote. He has written a bash script that will download Twit stuff, which is really cool. Instead of having, this is an email thread. If I show it on email, it'll just be his email and my email, his. But you could see Spike's turned it into a back and forth like a text message. It gets rid of all the kind of email cruft. You could just reply, this is my reply. It has attachments of just like you would expect in messaging. You could put GIFs in it. You can put audio in it. You could put a map in it if you'd like to. I guess I just turned off location access, so I won't. You can also put files in from your cloud. So it really is a powerful way to do email in the tradition that you're used to, but makes it look like messaging. They also have, if you miss the inbox feature, Google's inbox, it has a priority feature that I think is pretty good. It's simple. It's merely people that you've been in a conversation with. So if you don't reply to mail, it won't get in the priority. You can also look at your calendar within Spike. it allows you to create groups. So you can add email addresses. I could have a Twit email address or an iOS Today email address and would add it. This is my contact list, and I can add new people to my contact list. I think this is a really fantastic way of handling email. I'm gonna say this, maybe not going to replace mail, but it is. Remember, it's free, so you can easily try it out. And you only pay for it if you're going to use it in a business, but it's free for personal use. This is, I think, a really clever way. And, of course, I can create, let's access my photos. I can create, put pictures in here. I can put a doodle in my email. I can translate the email if I'm getting emails in foreign languages. This is a really nice little system. It also supports encryption. Now, the encryption is a little different than end-to-end encryption like I recommend with PGP or GNU Privacy Guard, GPG. It is spike encryption. So essentially what happens is it will encrypt the email. It probably isn't trust no one. It's probably not end-to-end. I imagine the folks at Skype could unencrypt it if they wanted to because it's going to go through their system. If somebody else is using Spike, it'll automatically be unencrypted. So we can have an encrypted conversation. Fantastic. If they're not using Spike, they're going to get an email that says, this is encrypted, click this link, and it'll then take them to the website for the unencrypted version. So it's a form of encryption that is probably useful it's private enough. But remember, it's not completely private because the folks at Spike have access to it. It also, as Slack and other messaging systems do, supports video and voice calls. So this is a really kind of interesting take. Start with email and turn it into a messaging system. I find it sometimes a lot easier to have a conversation with this than an email. It's really conversational email. And that was the original idea of Hop. And they've, I think, taken it a lot farther with Spike. It's worth having. You can have it set up so that it automatically shares your email with Apple Mail so that you can choose the presentation you want. But this for me, and it also eliminates the need for a inbox zero because you're having a conversation. You're not going to delete that message. You want to keep that message around, right?
Yeah, I love keeping my messages in iOS.
Yeah.
And I like that it makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
And I don't have to feel guilty about I have way too many. I don't quite have as many as you, and I do clean them out from time to time, but I'm not an inbox zero kind of person. So I respect that not being shamed for having too many emails.
Good. Because I was sick and tired of Megan's shaming of me. No, it'd be fun. I'd go and I'd look at my notifications for email and I'd be like, oh my God, I really probably should answer some of these.
Somebody wants to know years ago, like, hey, how's everything going?
Yeah, it's really embarrassing when you answer an email from like last year. And I frequently do, by the way. And
that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I usually say something like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I just saw this now. You can only do that so many times before people just stop.
I had too many Domino's pizza offers that were above this.
That's why, honestly,
all those out.
My email's filled with useless junk.
Yeah.
That's why I like priority inboxes, and I think that's another thing that Spike does very well. So there is my app cap. There is Mikah's app cap. Let's welcome Mikah to iOS Today. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much.
In a few weeks,
happy to be here.
He'll be sitting right here next to me, and I'm looking forward to that. If you want to email us a question, please do. iOS Today at twit.tv. We do this show 9 a.m. when Leo shows up on time, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. I should just tweet it, shouldn't I? I'll be a little late today. Noon Eastern. That's 1600 UTC. You can watch live at our live stream. Actually, watch or listen live at twit.tv/live. If you do that, join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. It's easy to do. It's well moderated, so it's safe, even for the little kiddies. And I think you're going to enjoy the folks in there. They're very funny. If you, after the fact, want to listen to a show, it's easy to do that. Don't forget your Apple HomePod, your Google voice device, your Amazon Echo, all will be able to play the most recent version of iOS Today. Just say, Echo, play iOS Today podcast, and you should be able to listen to it. You can also subscribe.
And it'll say, sorry, Leo is late. We can't play that for you right now. You also can subscribe. That way it doesn't matter when I show up. If you subscribe to our audio, it'll arrive automatically in your phone or your device the minute it's available. And you'll find how to subscribe and all of our episodes available for download, audio and video. It's always a good idea to watch at twit.tv/iOS. Welcome, Mikah Sargent. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited. Yeah, me too. Don't
forget.
Send us those emails, iOS Today at twit.tv.
You could send them, and Mikah will see them because we got it set up so we all see them now. That's kind of the magic of email. We'll see you next time on iOS Today. Bye-bye.